Vitum við það. So, hello everybody. My name is Sigríður Haraldsson. I'm the Secretary of ICF Iceland, and the Icelandic ICF chapter is hosting the webinars today in the International Coaching Week, where all the Nordic countries are hosting, also each having one day for seminars. And today we were so lucky to have a very special person, Sigríður Ólafsdóttir, Sigga. She's a human resources manager and a PCC coach, has her master's in business and in HR management. And she specializes in organizational coaching, life and career coaching, mentor coaching, as well as conflict management coaching. Sigríður was a board member of the ICF Iceland from 2018 to 2020, and she has an APME diploma and a D certification in project management. She runs her own coaching and consultant practice called Mögnum, and she's here today to talk about the ICF ethics. And I think without further ado, I'll just hand it over to Sigga. So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Didde. And good to see you, everyone that I can see. I always like it a bit more when people have their cameras turned on, but I don't do it always myself, so I totally understand when you choose to have it off. But feel free to share your face and your face expressions with me as we go along. And thank you for this introduction. And I'm not going to add much to that. Like you saw and heard, he said, my name is Sigríður Ólafsdóttir, but I always go by the name Sigga, as you can see on my screen. And I'm here to talk about the Code of Ethics. I'm not here to say that I know more about the Code of Ethics than you do. But I did take part in translating them, the newest version, into Icelandic while I was on the board. So that at least gave me a good reason and a pressure to dig into them and kind of feeling them. And it was such a inspirational and so much learning to kind of find the phrases and the word to describe what it is. So I'm really thankful for that opportunity to kind of take the pulse on the Code of Ethics and feel how it resonates with me, and for me to explore how I used them and also how I wasn't using them. Because sometimes that is the case with those things that kind of flows around us, and they are a part of our job, but we take them for granted maybe and don't visit often enough how they appear in our job, our practice, and our thoughts. I really want this hour that we are going to be spending together to be interactive. How do you feel about that? Yeah, some nodding and thumbs. Thank you. Thank you. And I mean, that was one of my biggest assumptions, and I stated it loudly in the beginning of COVID. I just said without blinking an eye, I'm going to close my business for good. I cannot work in this environment. I'm a people's person. I can be doing some screen technology stuff. But I'm glad that I proved myself wrong. But I will not deny I still have the people need. So, and I know that you all know that different energy when you are talking to the camera rather than talking to a group of people. So I know you feel what I feel in some ways. I see a lot of Nordic names and some Icelandic also. Good. So I will start with kind of prepping you into what we are going to be talking about. Yes, the Code of Ethics, that is our main subject. And we are going to be looking at them from the point of why, when, what's new, what's next for me as a coach in relation to the Code of Ethics, and also some complaints, or because we have in the Nordics, and I think in every ICF chapter, a Code of Ethics kind of board, or someone who receive complaints. So it's really helpful to look into what our clients and the society and the community in noticing that we should take into account of what we are doing and how we run our practices. So if we would start by wondering for ourselves, and I would love to hear your comments on them, both in the chat, or you can open the mic. What is the Code of Ethics for you? What is it to you?
I can start.
Thank you, Lena.
I think it's a kind of a contract that I sign into as a coach, something that I agree to follow.
Yeah, contract you agree on, yeah. Thank you, Lena. And I see here in the chat from Sanne, rules of engagement, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a guarantee. Sorry. It's a guarantee for our clients that that they get the kind of quality, that we stand for quality and we stand for an ethical behavior, basically.
Good point. A guarantee. Yeah. It's like when you're buying your TV, there is some guarantee that it will work for several years, or you can phone somebody to have it fixed. Yeah. Self-regulation rules. I had this question also in an Icelandic seminar some months ago, and there was also a kind of wording around like a police or somebody who was not in a negative way, could be somebody who is watching your back and kind of supporting you in being that qualified service provider. Yeah.
And I think having the ethical rules is, I mean, you can send them to the client so they know what's about, what you stand for, and how can they be supported if you know, if they're not satisfied. It gives a very clear indication of what we are doing and what we are committed to doing, I think. So it's really helpful to have them and to be able to provide them to clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was what's the word for it? I was renewing my ICF membership, and then I had to mark the box, I agree on the Code of Ethics, and I kind of noticed that, I mean, I didn't read it. I just marked the I agree. So I was remembering that when I was preparing for this. And another, yeah, you were raising your hand, Karen.
Yes, I think I'd like to say, I think they are kind of the quality stamp for ICF, and it defines ICF for me. It's why I choose ICF, because they are like a really banister for guiding the clients and me as well towards the goal. And I think it's, I was in the Me Too, when the Me Too was on, I was thinking, oh, wow, ICF has their standards in the ethics. We wouldn't drop down there. So
absolutely,
they are top of mind for me, and I always talk with my clients about them. And as Sanne says, it's really important to have them as a nice fund.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's a good point that covering kind of the things we don't want to happen. We don't want those negative things to happen, but we know that they do occur, and that we have some safety ground to land on to deal with them or to answer for them and guide them into some direction to resolve them. And another question in that area, how do we know we are using them?
Yeah, well, I think it has to be sort of part of your own integrity. I mean, if you don't adhere to the rules, if you have to look them up all the time, well, am I doing the right or the wrong thing, etc. I think we have that foundation. There are elements of it that we say, well, that's never going to happen. But it's like any kind of law that you put down. You need to be able also to deal with the exceptions, etc. So I think that I mean, if you're really doubtful about if you have to look them up all the time, well, then you definitely have to look into them. I think for all of us, because we've grown up with this in the ICF, that these are really the baseline for us ourselves. It's part of our own integrity, and we would never want to. But I do remember some of the questions in the knowledge test that we did at some point that was quite difficult, because I thought there's a lot of double negatives in the formulations, etc. So you can make it difficult if you want, but it isn't. I think these and particularly after the last revision, I think they're very clear.
Yeah, I agree. And I will come into those double negatives and so what is the optimal behavior that we should be showing? Yeah, and it's such I mean, that was kind of like I was saying in the introduction, because I had the opportunity of kind of looking at the Code of Ethics with kind of a microscope because of the translation process. then I realized so many things that I thought I knew, but I felt I could use them so much more by lifting them up. So there was a lot of kind of tools there. Yeah. So I mean, like I was saying, because I was scrolling down the when I was renewing, and I just marked the X. I agree. I mean, if I would dump on you another question, if you think on the scale from 0 to 10, how well do you know the Code of Ethics? Be honest.
Well, I wouldn't be able to quote them verbatim. Definitely not.
Oh, that's a 10.
Yes, that would be a 10.
Yeah, that would be a 10.
So 4. I mean, if it's about, can you spell them out? Can you tell me what they are? I think if I were asked about an ethical dilemma, would I know what the ICF would say, the ethical rules? Yes, I'd be pretty, I feel pretty confident that I'd know that.
Yeah. 5 and 6, 7/10. Yeah. Please share your results if you wish. It's interesting to see, and I mean, like you were saying, Sanne, knowing them by heart, be able to say, yeah, quote number 9 says that you should not, or whatever. Probably nobody expects that, but I'm wondering about how would best practice look like in how we use the Code of Ethics. And I was thinking on allowing you to discuss that for just a couple of minutes in groups. So the question, if I repeat it again, how would best practice look like we as coaches in relation to the Code of Ethics? Are you up for it to do some discussions about that? And so together we will have the handbook of best practice of the usage of the Code of Ethics, so the knowledge. So you will be in rooms of 4 and 5, and I'm just going to take some 7 minutes or something, just to kind of warm up into what's coming. Best practice, and I will call you back in about 7 minutes. Hello, Eric. Are you just joining us? Well, welcome back, everyone. So what brilliant outcomes did you invent? Anyone who like to share the golden ticket to the best practice of knowing the Code of Ethics? Okay, just keep it to yourself.
I was just going to. I'm just going to tell you that I can start by sharing that we talked about that best practices is something that we might need when we don't have any clear written rule. I'm a medical doctor in my background, and best practice is very much used there. If, of course, we always have to use those practices that have proven to do their work. But if you don't have anything like that, no real proven therapies or things like that, you'll have to do what at that point is viewed as best practice. Mm-hmm. So it's in a gray zone between what's written down rules, what's been proven, and what you're doing in everyday coaching, I think.
Yeah, so it's like there's a distinction between those two.
Yeah, I view it as if you don't know exactly this is the way to do it, then you have to do best practice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Good thought. Yeah. Thank you for sharing this, Ben.
There you go.
Nina?
In our small group of 3, we talked about actually telling the client when we start up a new conversation or a new meeting with the client what we stand for, because we can't expect all our clients actually to know what kind of coaches we are and what kind of special setup we have for our practice. So maybe that would be a very good idea to do. And we very much, none of us do it every time, so it's a good idea actually to do that, we say.
Yeah. To underline the information, to inform.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nina. Yeah.
And yes, and in our group, it was also mentioned that it's a very good selling argument. That we do have them. And as Nina was saying, that you have the conversation, that you create this safe space, that people know that there's confidentiality, etc., and that we also know, we can check with ourselves if we are in any doubt about whether we are transgressing in some way. We can ask ourselves a couple of questions, and we'll know whether it's right or wrong what we're doing.
Yeah. Good point. And that kind of leads, if I will continue with my agenda, thank you for sharing and thank you for participating. And it's kind of like in coaching, like somebody said, coaching is what happens in between sessions. So in a workshop like this, what happens in the breakout room is kind of sometimes what happens, and I don't know about all of that. So enjoy taking that with you also. But I mean, the why the Code of Ethics, and from this perspective of the coach, I mean, this is kind of building on the partnering, the contracting and the connecting. So it serves this tool of togetherness, because we are partnering with the client, partnering with other coaches, partnering with the community and the profession. And like I have been hearing here, this kind of community of professionalism, because ICF takes a big pride in those codes of ethics. And it is a competitive advantage to be able to say to our clients and our potential clients that they have, because this is a safety net for the client also. So it is a competitive advantage. So it states who we are as coaches and confirm that what we do is coaching. So it both defines our profession and our responsibility. So it's safety for both us and our client, so to speak. And if we take the perspective of the client, why the Code of Ethics from his perspective? And then comes to this point, it informs him on what coaching is and is not, because that is clear in the Code of Ethics. So it's kind of express this professional responsibility and also encourage and builds under the co-creation of trust and partnering. So it's again this grounding for his safety. And I mean, like this competitive advantage, I mean, it shows our ambition, our professionalism, and then it gives this positive image, because we want to stand on our professional ground. We take what we do seriously. Feel free to comment or disagree with me. You have permission to disagree or add on to whatever you hear me sharing with you. So that was the why. And then it comes to the big issue of when. When is the Code of Ethics relevant? And I mean, many of us kind of say, I mean, coaching is in our DNA. We kind of adopt some kind of a mindset or how we approach circumstances and people. So what's your taking on that? When is the Code of Ethics relevant? What's your opinion on that?
Erica here.
Yeah, hello, Erica.
I see Pia was raising her hand, but I was not polite enough to do so. Sorry, Pia.
Yeah, for you, yeah.
I had the privilege to be in the same group as Nina and Mari, and we also touched upon your question in our small group conversation, discussing being professional in our role as coaches. And I can relate to our conversation on that. The ethics is just as relevant before, during, after, and in our being as coaches, professional ones.
Before, during, and after. Yeah. Thank you, Erica. Pia?
Yes, I agree. It's always relevant, but it's especially relevant when you have dilemmas. When you have maybe in the same company, two coachees, when you know something and maybe it's dangerous, or maybe it will make conflicts, and it could be nice to talk to other about how to do it. In our group, we were talking about would we like to see what we did on the front page of the newspapers, and it's a good question, but maybe it depends on who the journalist is and which angle you take. So it's not always that easy.
Yeah, interesting dilemma. Yeah.
Yes. When it's normally there's no dilemmas when you have one coachee and you don't know the rest of the company, but I had a case recently where I was helping another one I had coach to find a new manager in their company, and I have been coaching one of those who has been seeking the job, and I could see in the CV that was a lie. What do you do?
Yeah.
So who's the journalist?
Interesting. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. When we kind of have different hats and we come into the situation with different knowledge and I mean, we could look at it as, I mean, are we supposed to follow the Code of Ethics when we are talking to a person sitting next to us in a plane and we are having a conversation, or dealing with our teenager, or I mean, if we are kind of dealing with family members and kind of using our coaching skills. And I mean, if I use this example of a teenager and he says, don't share it with dad. And then there's a parenting conflict that mom and dad should know the same thing, right? So where is the confidentiality? So I mean, there are some opportunities for misstepping again and again. It is, although in practice we think it's simple. And it also kind of, if we kind of match the code of ethics to our own personal values. So if we are thinking, are the code of ethics my DNA? Am I presenting myself as Sigga, the same as Sigga, the coach following the code of ethics? So, and then it comes into, if it is my DNA in a way, and it is in line with my values as a person, and then comes every 3 years, they change the code of ethics. So should I change, or what's happening there if I'm supposed to be as a person, or I choose to be in line with this document? So yeah, we could say an opportunity to grow, learn, revisit, improve, update, right? So yeah, we can say it's normal and goes without saying to kind of find the new rhythm with the new version. Yeah.
I see Nina has a comment.
Yes, I'm wondering, because now you said, what about talking to your teenager?
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's different whether I'm a professional or not. Yeah. I've been on many training courses where we have both professional coaches and leaders who wants to be using coaching as a part of their professional life. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's the same, because when you are a leader, or boss maybe, you are in a power relation to these people you're talking to, which you're not when you are not the same kind of power, no. Which you are not when you're a coach. So for me, it's important to be aware what kind of position I am in. And for me, I think that the value of these code of ethics, especially, are used for me when I'm a professional coach. Mm-hmm. And of course, many of them is very good and very common and very everything. So I use them in many ways elsewhere. But for me, it's very much focused on being a professional.
Yeah, yeah. And in line with that, I mean, most of us would be starting this professional relationship with a contract of any kind. That we would probably not do with our teenager, saying what's ahead and so on and so on. So that's personal. And yeah, Sanne.
Oh, yeah, please finish what you were saying. I was just
you're
commenting.
Okay.
On. No, I was just thinking about what Pierre was mentioning about dilemmas and what happens in an organization. I mean, you can maybe be coaching two people in the same organization and they have a conflict. Where do you stand there? You know, the kind of transparency and openness. I mean, we're not Catholic priests, so if somebody confesses to some unlawful dealings, etc., we are still obliged to you know, to flag that. And I think in that case, and if you do have a client, it's never happened to me, thank God, but if you do have a client who is, you know, who's unethical, or who lies and cheats or do things, I mean, you can definitely confront them and then tell them, you know, I have to report this, because there is a limit to confidentiality as well. And I think that's also why it's important to have these ethical rules, that people know that you know, if you yeah, I think I made my point. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's kind of, I mean, because I work also as a conflict management coach, and I have kind of learned by doing a little bit. By my contract is getting bigger and bigger because I face some circumstances that I didn't see before I started. So of course we learn also, even though it kind of stings in the heart, but oh my God, she feels that I betrayed her trust. So I look back to the contracting. Didn't I say that somewhere that I would be reporting to her boss? Or, I mean, those things. And that's also the new thing, or not really the new thing, but there is so much more emphasis on those things in the new Code of Ethics because of, I mean, the profession is widening and touching on so many more aspects, and especially in the internal coaching in organization and so forth. So, and the Code of Ethics, this new version, and like some of you probably know, I mean, that document is visited every other 3 years. So sometimes it changes a lot, sometimes less, but it always gets that review. And if we would see before us 3 circles, one big, and then another one inside, and the third one inside. So the big one, that is ICF core values. Then there comes the Code of Ethics. And then there comes the core competencies. So I find it helpful to see this relation, and I listened to some seminar on this. It was kind of described as a dance. There's a constantly rhythm and dance between those 3: the core values, the Code of Ethics, and the core competencies. So it all talks together. It has a common and shared rhythm. And if I were to read out for you the 4 core values, it kind of sums so many aspects. It's integrity, excellence, collaboration, and respect. So that is what is all around us in this dance with our practice and what we do. Does anybody have a suggestion of a song that represents this dance? I was thinking about it before. I couldn't come up with a song, but I'm going to continue think about it. What song what rhythm is it? Is it fast or slow, smooth? I see some thought processing in some of you.
I can come up with a suggestion.
I knew it. I saw it on your face. It was coming.
No, being a tango dancer, I think tango is a nice dance because you have to always really feel what the other person is feeling to be able to follow the move, follow the dance, which can always change. So I would say that for me, it's tango, Argentinian tango, not the Finnish one.
Oh my! And that's such a good input into it, like, because that's such feelings and expression and things happening. I'm gonna Google something on Spotify that I'm gonna ahead and put into it. Great, thank you, Erica. And so if I continue with, because also kind of in relation to the circles and this connection, the Code of Ethics takes well, the word's flipping here. I was going to speak it in Icelandic. The Code of Ethics represent the responsibility towards those 4 pillars, to the 4 grounds that we kind of stand upon. That is our clients, that is the practice and performance, the kind of professional society of us coaches, and professionalism, and the society. We we bear the responsibility towards those groups. We are not doing some solo work wherever. We have to take into account our effects on those pillars and the effects of them to us in our practice. Could you, I'm going to put here in the chat just as a reminder of how the competency is phrased. This competency 1, ethical behavior. Here you see what underlines that competency. Could you say that one of those or many are challenging, or?
I'm not sure I understand what you asked for.
No. Is there something there that you kind of find challenging, difficult, or you have to be constantly watching out for to withhold? No, not really. That's a good sign.
No.
Or what?
No, I think this is really something that's under our skin. I mean, this is so important. This is the whole foundation for what we're doing. We couldn't do what we do if we did not adhere to this and used it every day.
Yeah, yeah. Probably, absolutely. For some, kind of this number 6, and I mean, this is a common subject in our profession. And I think it is one of the most read articles in the ICF website. Am I giving too much advice, if I recall the title of it? So I know for many there is this kind of gray line in that area, and will probably constantly be kind of debate about what is truly the right thing, or is there a wrong thing? So, and we will probably not have time to go into that here and now. But there is that's such an interesting topic, for sure.
But actually, just asking, because I don't know all these paragraphs out of my head. What you just mentioned here, mentoring versus coaching, is that a part of the code of conduct? Is it now?
It is. It's part of the code of the conduct to describe and say what coaching is and what coaching is not. So that is detailed in the Code of Ethics.
Okay.
And we also see, when I show you a little bit, I'll tell you about the complaints, then they touch on the late responsiveness of the coach to refer the client to a different profession, and instead trying to fill those shoes that are not the coach's shoes. The changes that were made, some of them there is, in this new version, was a lot about usage of wording, like somebody was saying before, this double negative and so on. So it took some thought to see what is the meaning of this. And I mean, in coaching, we usually focus on what the client wants, less on what he don't want. So now it's the same in the Code of Ethics. The wording is around what we do instead of what we don't do. So in relation to that, 90% of the document was changed just in this way to change how this was approached. There are only two sections that still remain with the does not. And that is, does not participate in any sexual or romantic engagement, and does not participate in some unlawful action. But all the others were changed. So we talk about what we do and what we want to see and practice. There are two new sections, and I'm going to put here into the chat box also, if you want to. It's the, no, I don't have the right one. Well, I'm probably not going to, I'm not going to use the time on this. But there are two sections that are new. You can look into it after our workshop. It's number 25 and 11. And I'm going to put them into the chat so you will see them. And what we can read into those new sections and what they are kind of underlining for us in our coaching practice, that is, it underlines this partnering, this cooperation, this togetherness in the process. So it kind of adds in the context of the diversity of, I mean, of us humans. So the concept of understanding and sensing where the client is coming from, and kind of listening into with a broader scope, and it kind of demands of us to evaluate how broad of a scope we can listen to, and also know our limits. That when the diversity is kind of not in our rhythm, to know our own boundaries, to take action on that. And of course, like you see in number 11, it's underlining we are equals. So this kind of power status or difference, that the only thing that we have that the client doesn't have is the knowledge of the method coaching. Although we know that many kind of seek our service because they think and trust in our expertise of their topic or their dilemmas, and that also kind of revisits to the number 6 and the competency about the counseling or not counseling part. And I mean, we know that it also can build under trust. I mean, if we are coaching in the education system, it can help if we ourselves as coaches are teachers. Then other professionals in that industry find it easier to trust us. We know a little bit more about what they are experiencing, even though we are just coaching. You know what I mean? Okay, now we have around 5 minutes left. I'm going to name some of the common complaints and then just use the very last minutes for some last comments or questions. in the report from 2019, what ICF has information about, I think there were about 30 complaints in that report that I looked up. And what happens, and we also have that experience here in Iceland, and you see here Rakel Baldursdóttir, who is here with us. She is on the Code of Ethics board here with the Icelandic ICF chapter. And I mean, we had one complaint, and the client who was complaining, I mean, he was devastated, and he was very much in the need of somebody to support him and back him up according to his experience. But that coach wasn't a member of ICF. So we couldn't react or do anything about it. And that's known all around the globe in this regard. So that underlines again and again this competitive advantage we have as members of ICF to ensure security for our clients. Well, common complaints are misinterpretation of service or accreditation. So somebody's saying they have accreditation when they don't, or a school applying some kind of accreditation when there's only ICF who can and is allowed to give that kind of stamp. The only thing that the schools are doing is delivering a certification. And unclear contracts, breach of confidentiality, lack of judgment when need to refer the client to a different kind of service, not honoring the client's right to end the coaching relationship, which I find a little bit strange how that is possible, but obviously it is, and some conflict of interest. And that number has arisen a bit in the light of growing population in the internal coaching. Okay. We have 3 minutes left, good people, and some of you have already left us for other meetings. Any comments or questions before we say goodbye? Okay, all good. I'm going to put in the chat a little gift for you. So you can just copy that and put it on your to-do list. If you have had some ideas or something is starting to kind of work in your lighthouse, in order to grow your sense and use of the Code of Ethics, what do you want to start doing, stop doing, and what do you want to continue doing? So it's a little exercise for you to do a to-do list. Thank you all for a good time together and for all your interaction. So I will be dancing tango from now on. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Sigga. And thank you all for attending. Bye-bye.